Hey, what's up? I'm JM Chaley and welcome to my channel. I am an author and an RPG gamer, and today I want to talk about adding classes, character classes, to your manuscript and into your story. You're basically taking all the adventure classes that your players were, and now you want to transfer those kind of characters and what they do and how they did it into your story. But the game mechanics may not necessarily line up with the story you're trying to tell. So what do? My own work in progress is about a half-succubus who is desperately trying to escape hell and go to the mortal world. It is loosely based on many Dungeons & Dragons games that I played with her, but when I played those games, she was already on the mortal world, and she went through a bunch of different classes as different revisions of Dungeons & Dragons came out, and I changed this and I changed that. And one thing that remained consistent was her story. It really didn't matter if she was a magic user, and then she was a wizard, and then she was a warlock, and how they changed multi-class between the different versions. The mechanics of what she did and how she did it changed, but she ultimately didn't change, and it really came down to me telling her story agnostic of the rules. And that's really what it comes down to for your manuscript as well. So that's what we're going to get into. I have 5 tips on how to take Dungeons & Dragons classes, put them into your manuscript and into your story. So let's get right down into it with number 1, screw game balance. Okay, now Dungeons & Dragons does a great job of coming up with a way that all these classes kind of complement each other and balance each other out. You can have a powerful wizard and a scrappy fighter, and they're going to be kind of on par with each other if they're the same level, so to speak, or within a couple of levels of each other. Well, maybe on your world, magic is insanely powerful. Maybe your setting is a high magic system and your wizards are godlike. No one with a sword is going to be able to do jack shit to this individual, if that's the case. Or maybe you're in a low magic world and your wizards are kind of, cantripy, or they do kind of parlor tricks and stuff like that, and they are no match for a well-seasoned warrior. Game balance doesn't make a difference. I like to use the example of the Star Wars role-playing game. I know I'm talking about Dungeons & Dragons a lot because it's kind of the granddaddy of fantasy fiction when it comes to role-playing games. But in Star Wars, they had to come up with a way to balance out all the classes. Well, guess what? One of the classes you can be is a Jedi Knight. And so they're basically saying that, this guy over here, the galactic warrior or whatever he is the same as this guy over here. No, not in any movie was that ever the case, but they kind of cram that in for game balance. The story has to come first. Screw the game balance, make things as powerful as they need to be, and don't worry about anything. Okay, so even if you're taking a story of your party members and they go on a little quest and they're all equal and blah blah blah, one of them might be more powerful when they hit the pages of your story, and that's just kind of how it is. Number 2, you got to sort out your melee versus your magic types. Now, Dungeons & Dragons, again, for example, they have a lot of different melee classes and a lot of different magic classes. On the melee side, they've got fighters and they've got paladins, and I think they have cavaliers now. Again, they have rogues who can fight, they have bards that can fight, rangers, on and on. On the magic side, you've got wizards and sorcerers and warlocks and alchemists now, bards again, and also rangers. Take that off. If you want to get into holy magic, now you have clerics, you've got druids, right? All this kind of magic, all this kind of melee. There's a lot of overlap. You may not need 51 flavors of every kind of swordplay and every kind of magic doer, You may just need to trim it down to the stuff you need, right back down to the basics of what is important to your story. Maybe magic is only cast by a certain class of people. You have to get educated in this one path, and that's it. Maybe for fighters, look, you wield a sword or you don't wield a sword. Some people wield a sword in the army, and some people wield a sword in defense of the church, and whatever, Figure out what you need in your story and get rid of the rest. You don't need to have every single class represented in your world. So that party that I was talking about that you're writing the story about, and they have all these different classes, well, guess what? Maybe 3 of them are warriors and 4 of them are magic types. And that's it. And that's all you have to describe. You don't have to say, well, one's a ranger and one's a bard and one's a... Fine, have one of your warriors play a musical instrument. Or one of your wizards play a musical instrument. Bards are kind of all over the place. You know what I'm getting at. Number 3. Some classes are cool, but they may not have a high demographic. There may not be a lot of them in your world. Maybe you do want to have rangers, but are there a lot of rangers hanging out in the woods? Are there whole villages of these guys running around? Are you going to meet thousands of these kind of people on your world? No, maybe there's like one guy who lives in the woods and he's pertinent to your story, and he happens to have all these kind of ranger-like skills that maybe you plucked and reskinned out of the player's handbook. Maybe he has an animal companion. Maybe he casts a little magic on the side. Who knows what? Make him your own, and maybe he's a one-off. Maybe there isn't like, oh, he's a ranger. Like, nobody knows what this guy is. He just lives in the woods and he's a weirdo, but he does some cool shit. Bards. Are there a lot of magic minstrels on your world? Maybe there's just one guy that's pertinent to your story who happens to play the lute, and he knows how to fight if he gets in a jam, or he knows how to cast a little magic if he gets in a jam. Again, bards are kind of all over the place. So figure out these kind of niche character classes and see if they fit in your world. And if they do, maybe they don't need to be that prevalent. Maybe they just need to be the one-off or a small example. This is a small sect of these guys that do things a certain way in your world. And that's it. Number 4, the holy types, clerics, paladins. Maybe these guys do exist. That's up to you. You can easily put them in and around your own religion that maps your world. Are these guys Templars? Are they priests? Do they cast, how does divine magic work on your world? This is a pretty easy one to shove into your world, providing you have this kind of stuff in your setting already. If you don't, out it goes. Number 5, fighters and rogues. These guys could be all over the place. Fighters. This is anybody who can pick up a sword. These could be a farmer who just happens to know how to wield a sword, or someone who works for the town guard, or someone that serves in the army, or this could be a seasoned warrior who is trained to defend the temple, or this could be a mercenary, right? There's lots of ways to depict the fighter. They don't need to be different classes. They could just do things in a different way from one another. You can have different fighting styles and blah, blah, blah. And rogues, your cities can be thick with thieves as far as you're concerned. Have as many rogues as you need. Do you want to really delve into the rogue culture? Is there a thieves guild? Are there adolescent pickpockets roaming your streets? Are there burglars that smash in windows and steal your stuff? Are there highwaymen that stop you on the side of the road and rob you at sword point? Are there assassins in your world, right? So all these kind of flavors and versions of classes can find a home in your world, but it needs to make sense in your story. All it really boils down to is whether or not these character classes fit into your story. And if they do, they're not going to be character classes. They're just going to be how these particular characters do what they do. And you're going to strip away the veneer of all the game mechanics and all the things that they have to roll and special abilities and action economy and all this kind of bullshit that doesn't really come into play once it hits the pages of your book. Your character class is going to boil down to how your characters can do what they do. Anything else? Out of here. So that about wraps it up. Thank you for joining. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. And if you want to see more, I'm posting every Thursday. Please hit the subscribe button and ring that bell. I'm still posting outside because I'm having camera issues, but I hope to have them resolved in the next week or 2. But until then, I'm outdoors, the weather's good, so I'm not complaining. And please leave comments on character classes that you may have taken from your Dungeons & Dragons or any other role-playing game and put them into your manuscript and how you've made them work. How did you change a particular player character from one thing to another thing in your manuscript? How much was changed? I'd love to hear about that. So I do look forward to hearing from you, and I do look forward to seeing you again next time. And thank you so much for watching.